Hello, editing Shauna here in some terrible light. I am so bummed. I sat down to record, or to edit, I should say, after recording an over hour long podcast. And then I did a over 20-minute episode of State of the Stash back to back, and neither of them have sound. So I am editing the video as best as I can. I'm doing a voiceover recording. It's going to be a whole lot less chatty. It's going to have a lot less detail, but I'm hoping that that is better than nothing. I unfortunately did what I always do and saved recording to Sunday, and I have somewhere I have to be by 4:30 this afternoon. And so that means I have to leave my house at like 4. It's currently almost noon. So I really don't have another option. I am super bummed. I'm super annoyed. And this is the only way I can seem to make this work. Part of me was just like, just don't upload it at all. And if you don't want to watch, I totally understand. And I apologize. This has never happened. I don't know why it happened. But yeah, it sucks. So that's all I wanted to say. Watch if you want. If you don't want to, I totally get it. But I'm about to be doing Vlogmas, so I hope I can figure out what went wrong. Anyway, thanks for joining me if you decide to stick around, and if not, I get that too. So I will talk to you again soon. Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 37 of State of the Stash for November of 2025. My name is Shauna, and you're here on Shauna Stitches. If you're new here, this State of the Stash is my series that I've been doing for over 3 years now, where I make an attempt to reduce how much yarn comes into my stash and focus more on knitting from stash, and I compare how much yarn comes both in and out of my stash. The out is usually in the form of a finished object, although sometimes I do destash or gift yarn, but not usually. As I said, this is going to go over all the yarn that came both in and out of my stash in the month of November, which as you probably know, means lots of advents have shown up at my door. I won't be doing any spoilers, but I do have photos of kind of all of the boxes that are holding the yarn for my advents this year. So if you don't want to see that, I would probably avoid watching this one just because there are so many. Real quick, I'm wearing the Mabel sweater, which is a pattern by Joji Locatelli. It's knit out of Knitty McPurley's Frankfurt fingering in the light rose gold color. I really do like this sweater quite a lot. It's probably one of my most wearable patterns that I've knit so far. At the very beginning of the month, I finished 2 baubles. The first one, I'll be inserting pictures of both of these because I just don't have them handy. But the first one that I finished used 6 grams, and the second one that I finished used 7 grams. Both of these were knit out of the Chicken Lady Fiber Arts 911 Thin Gold Line colorway. The next project that I finished in November, I also don't have handy to show you, but I will insert photos. It is the Bowl Cozy Hot Pad. I forgot to write down who that's by, but it's a free pattern on a blog, Crochet. I made this out of Knit Picks Dishy in the Cabin multicolor, and this has been one of the most useful projects I have ever made myself. Highly recommend it. I'm able to heat up my lunch in the microwave at work, carry it all the way across the building and down a hallway to my office without burning my hands. It's been absolutely wonderful, and I highly recommend. That used 46 grams out of my stash. Then I had my very first advent come into stash for the year. Well, not for the year, because I did get the fingering weight sock skein earlier, but for November was Stitchin' with Yarn. It's easier just to insert a photo. Again, I'm not going to be showing any yarn, but it will kind of show the theme. So Stitchin' with Yarn is Charlie Brown. It's 24 20-gram minis plus a 100-gram skein for a total of 580 grams into stash. The second advent that arrived in my mail for November was my Knitty McPurley advent. This advent has 25 20-gram minis for a total of 500 grams added into stash. I managed to finish a languishing whip, the Travel Mode 2.0 Baby Blanket by Suzanne Summer. This was knit out of acrylic that I had in stash, and it was a good stash buster. I think I used a combination of 6 different colors, and if I was going to knit this again, I would definitely prefer a wool blend or a superwash wool, but it was a nice way to use up some acrylic, and it's very good for baby knits. Highly recommend this one if you have some stash to bust and a baby to knit for. This used a total of 432 grams. The next thing that arrived in my stash was my Cozy Knitter 24 stripe self-striping skein, and this one added 125 grams into my stash. Unfortunately, I don't have it here to show you because I've already started using it. The next full-size advent that arrived at my house was my Chicken Lady Fiber Arts Road Trip USA advent calendar. This one again is 24 20-gram minis plus a 100-gram full skein for a total of 580 grams into stash. The next advent that arrived is my Charming You Holiday Fortunes Advent. I'm super excited for this one. It again is 24 20-gram mini skeins plus a full 100-gram skein, again for a total of 580 grams. If you haven't noticed yet, advents are my weakness. I've done really well for most of the year, and then November comes, all the advents arrive, and my numbers are going in the toilet. I'm not overall mad, but I certainly wish that I controlled my spending just a little bit. Part of the problem is that, some of the advents start coming out in February or even sooner, and then other ones come out throughout the year. And I just am a sucker for a theme. So if I see a theme that I like, I tend to buy it because other people are going to like that theme too. And unfortunately, the FOMO gets me. So I need to learn to be better about that. But I'm not going to beat myself up, even though these numbers are not the best. I did manage to finish something else in the month of November. I finished section 16 of my Marled Magic Blanket. Again, I've been working on this for quite some time, but I absolutely love that I have decided to count yarn out for each section. This section 16 took 217 grams of a combination of a red and then a red, white, and blue skein. And although I didn't love it at first, I think it looks better now that I'm looking at it finished. The next advent to arrive in my mailbox was a complete surprise to me. I was not expecting this at all, but I was kindly gifted the advent from Mystery Mouse, Holly, and it surprised me so much. She graciously gifted me 12 20-gram minis plus a full 100-gram skein, which added a total of 340 grams. My last finished object for November is a pair of flint gloves that I knit for my husband out of Cascade 220 fingering. It's the non-superwash fingering weight yarn. It's a 2-ply. I knit the size large, and this used 42 grams out of my stash. Believe it or not, I'm not quite done talking about advents just yet. The last one arrived just yesterday, November 29th, and it is my Cuddle Bums advent. This one again is 24 20-gram minis plus a 100-gram skein, and that added 580 grams into my stash. The last thing that went in or out of my stash in the month of November was my November Cuddle Bums minis. These arrived yesterday on the 29th. I have 30 5-gram minis, which adds a total of 150 grams into my stash. So that was everything that went in and out of my stash in the month of November. But before I give you my complete monthly totals, I would just like to take a second to say that I'm very fully aware that advents are my weakness, and it's so hard. I love them so much, and I am trying to meet my goals, but they're clearly holding me back. So my plan for next year, what I would like to do is to buy maybe 1 or 2. And then as I'm opening the advents this year, what I'd like to do is try to think of patterns that I could match up to the yarns from this year and either knit 1 or 2 of them next year in Advent or even possibly earlier during the year. But I think it's the best way to put no pressure on yourself to not try to knit from an Advent that you're actually opening that year. I find that to be much harder. So going forward, I'm not going to say 0 Advents because that will probably backfire on me, kind of like a diet where you say no junk food and then all you want is the junk food. But I do hope to do better. Like I said, I knew what I was getting myself into, but I did kind of fool myself. So before I go completely into the totals, I just want to say, if you look on every single State of the Stash that I post, certainly recently, I don't think I've done it forever, but ever since I entered all of my stash into Ravelry, at the end of every month, I download the spreadsheet that tells me how much yarn that I have in my stash, and I compare that to the previous month. So I thought these numbers were pretty interesting. Maybe you do as well. I'm going to go through them slightly faster this time than I did in the regular recording, but go ahead and look at the show notes if you want to see more details. But just to give you an idea, in October, my stash said I had 1,170 skeins. And the way Ravelry Stash looks at a skein is if the yarn comes in a 25-gram cake, because say it's a mohair, then that counts as a skein. If it's a 50-gram Knit Picks Felici, that counts as a skein. Or if it's a 100-gram indie dyed, that counts as a skein. So I can't say, it's exactly 1,170 full 100-gram skeins because it varies. That being said, in November, the end of November, I now have 1,203 skeins. So that is plus 33 skeins into my stash just in 1 month, and that's pretty crazy. My grams from October were 89,436 or 197.1 pounds. My grams are now at 92,660, which is 204.3 pounds. I cannot believe I have more than 200 pounds of yarn in my house. My grams went up by positive 3,224, which is just crazy. I'll save you the numbers for the yards, but if you want to see the difference there, just know it was a net positive, and you can check out the final numbers down below. Now let's get on to the actual numbers that we had for the month of November. So all the yarn that came into my stash was a total of 6 Advents plus the Cozy Knitter Advent, which is also an Advent, but it's not a full Advent like we talk about them. And then the November Cuddle Bums, that was a total of 3,435 grams into stash. All the projects that I managed to finish in the month of November totaled negative 750 grams used. That left me with a difference of 2,685 grams in the positive. So more yarn into stash than I used, obviously. And when I compare that to overall how I've done for the year, at the end of October, I was negative 1,409 grams. So I had 14 skeins more out of stash than what I started the year with, which was fantastic. And now that I take the surplus from November and subtract that from what I had at the end of October, I am now currently positive 1,276 grams. So not terrible, but I could certainly do much better. I really am going to focus hard on my goals for next year. I'd just like to know, how do you guys avoid the FOMO of Advents? If you have any advice, I'm sure just not hitting the buy button or add to cart button is probably useful advice. But if you have anything a little more strategic, maybe mind game-ish, not that I want to play games with my mind, but probably just looking through my Advents that I already own would be a good way to alleviate some of the FOMO of wanting to get all the Advents. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. One last thing to add, and that's because you saw that I talked about all these Advents. I will be recording Vlogmas again this year. I plan on recording in 5-day sections. So December 1st through 5th will be one video, the 6th through 10th will be another video, and so on, all the way up until Christmas Day. I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope you are too. If nothing else, you can live vicariously through me if you didn't get any Advents this year. I certainly have enough for many of us. I think I'll go ahead and end it here. Again, I'm so sorry for the sound issues. This is not ever something that I wanted to deal with, but I just did not have time to re-record, edit, and then upload. Thanks for hanging in there with me if you did, and no hard feelings if you chose to not watch this entire episode. I get it, but either way, thank you for joining me, and thank you for hanging in there. I will talk to you all soon. Bye.